understand from a couple of his aphorisms. I had a great pleasure in reading Nietzsche, especially in German. It's kind of beautiful language, which I cannot find in an English translation. But the thing is, it requires a lot of kind of pre-knowledge, a lot of footnotes, and every time I read it, I find something new, sort of, in a way. And that's why I kind of upgraded my presentation only by listening here, all the presentation that kind of touches on this topic. So first I will try to give a historical context that precedes Nietzsche and in which Nietzsche kind of created his work. Then I will try to explain the Dionysian and Apollonian psychological states that he proposed in his doctoral thesis, The Birth of Tragedy. And then I will kind of go through a couple of his aphorisms and try to make the conclusions. So first is the dichotomies that kind of precede Nietzsche and gives the context to his concepts of Apollonian and Dionysian. So I would like to start with the scientific revolution that kind of started a whole wave of optimism, scientific optimism in the Western Europe. Like Descartes affirmed the existence of thinking entity, Copernicus postulates his heliocentric theory, and Newton gives the universal laws of physics. So all of these kind of create a new self-awareness of a human being at that time. And that creates this optimism in science and faith in knowledge, but on the other side it kind of alienates the human, so to say, creates the universe becomes impersonal, like the human being doesn't have any specific place in the universe, in the world. So we have this scientific optimism and existential pessimism. So it's we see in the next pages secularization, abolition of feudal system, and general improvement of life quality, so to say. But on the other side, we have this death of religion, new power structures, overpopulation, deeper inequalities, and so on and so on. So there is two ways of dealing with this ambiguous condition, so to say. One way is a scientific and rationalistic approach that praises the power of reason, believes in the possibility of attaining the objective knowledge, it sees the nature as a possible to be explained and tries kind of to conquest it. There is a faith in human progress, and they kind of seek redemption through the science. On the other side, we have romantics that come afterwards, so to say. They praise the human will and imagination. They believe more in emotions, inspiration, and subjective feelings. They see nature as a spiritual substance and a thing to emerge itself into or to unite itself with it. They accepted the drama of human existence, and they sought the redemption through art. So, I want to give a kind of background to go through European rationalists and British empiricists, but I don't want to bore you all. So we have a European rationalist that believed in the reason and possibility to know the world purely with the human mind, through deduction and innate ideas that we have. They saw the senses as totally insufficient and misleading, and then we have British empiricists that said that, like Locke, Berkeley and Hume, that believe that we can only through senses acquire knowledge, or at the end they said that we cannot acquire any kind of knowledge. Anyhow, that is all mental construct. So, as being said by Kant, he kind of married these two and opened the way to romantics. with this a priori knowledge, he created a connection with the mind and external world, and yeah. So to come to now to this romantic kind of sentiment or temperament of the time. Yeah, they both seem this classic culture, I think, classic Greek culture as an important. The first saw it more from the historic, archaeological, and like a repository for the knowledge, okay, like rationalist. And then the romantic saw it more as a source of genius, praising it for its art and reason. Then we have Nietzsche, who kind of, in my view, marries these two sentiments. He's a brutally scientifically skeptic, but on the other side, he's a great romantic, passionate, and aesthetic. So, in his doctoral thesis, The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche introduces the concept of Dionysian and Apollonian psychological states or responses. So the Greeks understood the horror of the existence. They were totally aware that there's, like Nietzsche said, there's nothing beyond existence, and there's no kind of meaning. So they had three ways of dealing with this notion: Dionysian, Apollonian, and Socratic. And through his analysis of the Greek culture, he shows the evolution of these, or interplay of these responses that culminated in Attic tragedy. So first, there was, before Attic tragedy, we have this opposition, so to say, between Apollonian art of sculpture and epic, and Dionysian art of music and lyrical singing. So, on one side there is Dionysian kind of response that is best described as intoxication. Like, we accept the horror of existence by mimicking it, by losing ourselves in it. Dionysian is, as a god, he affirms the pain and suffering. So Nietzsche says, like, Greeks created mythology and gods in order to justificate the life. And the gods were created, or taught, as all too human. They were definitely not ideal gods. They loved, they hated, they cheated, they killed, all these stuff. So they justified the life of Greeks by truly living it. So Dionysian was the god of wine, as said, and he suffered and he was sacrificed many times. And what describes as well the Dionysian response is this feeling of rapture, of ecstasy. It's an instinctive nature, wild nature of a human being, and it's described as well as chaos. It moves the whole body. It somehow, it let us kind of reunite with the whole, to forget our own individuation. So there's violence, sexual charge, and yeah, so it's always inside of something. And on the other side, we have Apollonian. That is more a response that could be described as a dream. So we don't identify with something by intoxication, but more by creating illusions, by imagining, by dreaming. So it deals with the appearance, or as Nietzsche called it, mere appearance. It drives us to the contemplation, creates images, we contemplate on them, so that's why we have art of sculpture or epic. And it imposes order, and it moves our eyes. it doesn't lead us to the unification with the whole nature, to the unity, but more to individuation and to identification with another individual. It is naive, it imposes the self-control, and ideas say veil. Because Nietzsche explains that it's not the opposing concepts, but they're always interplaying. If there is Dionysian, then Apollonian will come with a violent attack usually and kind of submerge it or cover it as a wave, create an image. And then he explains that Dionysian then comes from within again, when the culture becomes too, the Greek culture becomes too Apollonian. Like I said, they come together in the Attic tragedy. The Attic tragedy then fails with the help of Socratic response, so the third response. That is connected to the Socratic notion that only the one who knows is a virtuous. So this Socratic aesthetics takes the notion of the only things that are intelligible and reasonably explained are beautiful. So it was again this optimism of the knowledge that we later see before Nietzsche, like the quest for the knowledge and the need to explain everything scientifically as it is. This leads to the death of Apollonian and Dionysian responses in the Greek culture, and by Alexandrian conquests of the almost whole known world, they died. And we have then Hellenic culture dying as well. So Roman culture comes in. So Nietzsche, why Nietzsche analyzes this? Because he sees that Greek culture actually influences the Western culture from the depth. As we seen before, they're both interested in Greek culture and are taking it, one as an inspiration, the other as a knowledge. And Nietzsche sees in the modern world the lacking of this tragic disposition. The people they cannot live with the awareness of tragic. I usually think that we now as well try to create the uber positive world without any negative substances, like with social networks, that's the other thing. So he mentions this great health, which is the ability to accept tragic in our lives. Okay, so with this he kind of conjures the rebirth of Greek tragedy. Now to the architecture. In the twilight of the idols, Nietzsche here, I want to read this, but that's going to be boring and I don't have that much time, so I will go just fast through it. He sees the idealization as a process of creating reflection of one man's power, and this process that changes all the things into be the perfect image of one's power, he calls the art. So, and then here he calls as well to the possibility of imagining the anti-art that is going to represent things as impoverished, or to kind of affirm this tragic notion in everything. Here, this one. So I was only thinking, is it possible to maybe imagine some kind of anti-architect, but that's going to come later through the text. So in this, the next aphorism, Nietzsche tries to explain the Apollonian and Dionysian, how they're represented in the arts, where Apollonian only moves and irritates, so to say, our eyes, and Dionysian irritates our whole body and makes this charge of whole emotions. As in music, it makes us dance and acting. And here he says something that inspired me to actually make a whole presentation. he positions architect neither as one of these, because in the text he suggests that architect is always inspired from the outside. He's always inspired by the powerful people, by the power, and not from the inside as the other artists are. So this move to the power, that's what, like Matteo said a couple of days ago, like quoting Rossi, that every architecture is ideology, so that is still true, it still goes like that. But I'm thinking, is it maybe a different kind of response, maybe an architectural response that that should be here postulated. Then, in the next quotation, Nietzsche says that it talks about our ears, how our ears became too intellectual, that we can stand much noise more than our forefathers, and by doing that we give much more symbolics to the music, to the tones. So without further explanation we can understand music. By doing this we are conquering ugliness with intellectual ears, so to say, and thus transferring pleasure to the brain, not to the ears. So we don't hear with the ears, but with the brain, overthinking it all the time. And then, in one beautiful sentence, he says, "Ugly world that signifies more beautiful world." Just to find it, like we live in the ugly world that means much more beautiful world. So the problem here is that the things are symbolic first, then they're the things in itself. So we look more the symbolic meaning of the things than what they really are. So this is, I would connect with the professor's notion of degeneration of index, symbolism. And then there's as well a problem that he poses as the people who don't understand music, who don't have this intellectual ears, then they have to enjoy just ugly music. The stone is more stony than it used to be. This is the main aphorism, so to say, about architecture, where he says that to understand the architecture is not the same as to understand the music, because we've grown out of symbolics of lines and forms. So he here quotes the Greek and Christian temples where everything had its own meaning, and again this notion of indexicality, everything was a sign for the reason. But he says that this meaning is almost serves as a veil over the building itself. So he suggests that building itself is this horrible thing that needs to be covered. He uses the formulation unheimliche Erhabene, and here it's translated as uncanny and exalted. So, it says that the proximity, the buildings in itself had a presupposition to be dreary, to be horrible, and the beauty served only at best as to kind of temper this horror. So to have sort of this Apollinian function. And then he says, but what is the beauty in today's building? How the buildings are built in the time of Nietzsche. He says like they're only like a beautiful face on a soulless woman or a girl, which is to say like a mask. So it's a classicist architecture that covers the building, that doesn't have, that becomes the aim of the building. So beauty becomes the only aim of the building. And here he then continues to talk about the music, how in the music, with the Counter-Reformation, music finds its own new form and a language. And that Protestant music is kind of liberated from dogmatism, and then he explains about the opera, how opera is trying to rebel against the cold and too learned music of the time, and then he uses the notion of before what the modern music is to pose the question, if the music of that time was to move the stones, what kind of architecture would it build? Would it build the antique temple? He doubts it. But then he says, like, the architecture that he wants to see already is being built. So for that which reigns in music, the affect, joy, and hates, wide-ranging moods, the desire for liveliness at any cost, the rapid change of sensations, strong belief effects in light and shadow, the juxtaposition of ecstatic and the naive, all these reigned once before in the plastic arts and created new stylistic laws. But it was neither in antiquity nor in the time of Renaissance. He here hints at Baroque. And as Lucas said, just the Baroque takes time to be understood and to be enjoyed, to be perceived. And as I said, Renaissance is a thing and the classicity of architecture he sees as a thing. So, my question or my thoughts are, what would be then this architectural response that is neither Dionysian nor Apollonian, neither tries to cover other things, nor tries to let us emerge into the wild nature or reunite with the horrible existence. And